All right, let's go live. Great, looks like we're live. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to convene the Legislative Audit Commission Executive Subcommittee. Today is August 12th, and it's about 12:04. So morning, everybody, or good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you guys. We do have a quorum. We still have one member. Senator Zhang is not checked in yet, but we'll get going. I do think it'll be fairly quick. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Monsieur Michelle, for putting together all of the information. Just so everybody knows, we're in the middle of the legislative auditor's term, which is a 6-year term. This is 3 years, and we've created a process, well, about 4 years ago, I think, to put together a formal evaluation process. And so this is the first time we've had to execute the midterm review, which we seek outside or some independent oversight or review to aid or assist us in decision-making and performance evaluation. But for at least for me, I don't know about the other members on here, but it's been very good. Prior to this structure, we really didn't have anything. We had an informal process, which wasn't transparent, wasn't informative to all the other members nor the public. So this is done in the public, respecting from a performance evaluation perspective, the legislative auditor's privacy, but at the same time, the importance of this office, I think, and I think Representative Hansen agrees, is that bringing good structure to the process. And I think it's also enhanced our ability in the overview to have a broad-based discussion on issues within the legislative audit as an office. What are those things that we need to be prepared for? And it's a little bit more structured and comprehensive. And so this is the midterm review. And so anybody else have any comments before we turn over and get a rundown from Ms. York? Representative Hansen, anything?
I think this is a good, as we set precedent here for the first time, I think looking at this, not just for the current term, but in the future, I appreciate the bipartisan effort here and the, increased professionalism of having a structure. So I look forward to it. And, let's go.
Yeah, I would agree, Representative Hansen, and so many things people don't understand that the legislature were just kind of unwritten policies, and standards. This puts it into something formal, and we did a pretty good job, I think, and it is truly bipartisan, and I think everybody benefits from it. So with that, we also get great support from Ms. York in her office, and so I would like to turn over. She's produced. Everybody has, I think, copies of the work plan, and so Ms. York, if you'd like to run through that for us, and we'll get our work done.
I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Chair. As indicated, I'm Michelle Urich. I'm the Executive Director of the Legislative Coordinating Commission, and we help with facilitate some of the logistical aspects of the performance review. The policy that Chair Curran mentioned that was adopted in 2019 included provisions that are required to be components of the review, and one of which is that at least 30 days prior to the review occurring, that the subcommittee meet and approve the work plan. The work plan before the subcommittee this year does include 2 components. So it includes a component that would mirror the first 2 years evaluation for the 3rd year evaluation, and then it includes an additional component this year that is required by the policy at the conclusion of the 3rd year. So it's somewhat the 4th year performance evaluation process that includes an external, bringing in an external party to facilitate and conduct that review. And so with that, I'll share my screen with all of you and walk through the components of the work plan and some of the key dates, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you have. So the evaluation process and components, it includes 3 pieces. The first of which is a self-assessment that gets completed by Judy Randall as the legislative auditor, and that gets submitted to the chair and vice chair of the Legislative Audit Commission. There's also then interviews that get conducted, and I help with the logistical aspects of scheduling those interviews with both staff and stakeholders and members of the legislature. And then the final evaluation includes an in-person meeting with Ms. Randall and the chair and vice chair of the Legislative Audit Commission. We're at item number 2 today, where the executive subcommittee is meeting to consider this work plan and authorize the work plan to be approved. The item number 3 will be conducted by Senator Cran and Representative Hansen as the chair and vice chair of the Audit Commission to identify LAC members that would conduct the interviews and gather input on the review and then report it back to the two of them. So the interviews typically would take place sometime in September. Our goal would be to wrap them up by the end of September. And then by about the 3rd week in October, a verbal update being provided to the chair and vice chair of the LAC if they are not the individuals who participate in those staff and agency interviews. Ms. Randall will provide her self-assessment by October 31st, and she also will complete a review of the deputy auditors. The policy that was adopted also included a requirement for performance evaluations of the deputy auditors to be conducted by Ms. Randall as the legislative auditor. On or after November 8th, which is the anniversary date of the appointment to the legislative auditor position, is when a in-person meeting would occur between Representative Hansen, Senator Cran, and Ms. Randall to discuss and provide the official performance evaluation. Then by the end of November, summary materials are provided to the LAC members, and then if deemed by the chair or requested, a meeting of the Legislative Audit Commission would occur where an overview of the performance would be discussed. There are various templates that have been developed to facilitate the conducting of the performance evaluation. And we also have guidelines for confidentiality and record retention, with this being personnel information that's being collected. I work in consultation with Lexi Stengel, the Director of Senate Council Research and Fiscal Analysis, and Matt Gehring, the Director of House Research and Development, on the overall process timeline. They are also available to members in the event performance concerns or confidential information is shared throughout the evaluation process, and additional steps may need to be taken. So that's the overview of the process, which is the same process that's been followed the first 2 years of Ms. Randall's appointment as the legislative auditor. I mentioned that there's another component this year that we're also asking the subcommittee to approve and authorize, which is the midpoint evaluation. As I mentioned, the policy indicates that at the conclusion of the 3rd year, which will be this upcoming November, then a independent evaluation is to occur. And so what would happen is, for that is, one of the discussions that took place several years ago, and one of the provisions in the policy, is that it cannot be conducted by another branch of government. So it can't be conducted by the executive branch or judicial branch, and cannot be conducted internally within the legislative branch. I did talk with NCSL about the possibility of them serving as a resource or performing the review, and they actually have a policy against being directly involved in performance reviews of legislative staff. And so we will be calling for proposals from consultant firms that are familiar with HR processes and conducting performance reviews, and requesting bids from them for this work. The LCC would then enter into contract with them, and I will work closely with Ms. Stengel and Mr. Gehring on the selection of a vendor, and report that to the executive subcommittee on then the specific timeline that would be followed for that process. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Great, thanks, Ms. Yerk. And I think last year, as it relates to task 3, our evaluation members or the interviewees were Senator Rest and Representative Quam. If Representative Hansen's good, we'll both do the same as we did last year, canvass our members, each of our members on each side, and to see if anybody else is interested in, or who's actually interested, and then decide who will be those members for this year, and we'll get it back to you hopefully in the next day or two. Okay.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I don't see my raise hand feature, so it's Representative
Yeah.
Hansen. The Ms. Urich, with the when you're talking about vendors, so they're consultants, would it be possible that, say, a law school or one of the universities or something, would they be a possible applicant as well? Could you reach out to them?
So the only prohibition that's in the policy is that the entity is not part of the legislative, judicial, or executive branch. So we would just need to ensure that the organization is not part of that, but any other entities could be considered.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of the midpoint evaluation procedures as recommended as identified by Ms. Urich.
Representative Hansen makes the motion to approve the agenda Ms. Urich provided. I don't see any other issues as well. I think they did a great job. And any other questions, members? Without seeing any, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion, all those against? I don't think anybody else is here. Motion carries. So the plan has been adopted, and so we will then move forward and select the interviewers out of our pool of members on the Legislative Audit Commission, and we'll get that to Ms. Urich as soon as possible so we can make sure we don't miss any deadlines and we keep it on track. So I don't see any other business before us. Anybody else have any questions?
Ms. Urich, do we need any other motions, or was that sufficient?
That covers it, Representative Hansen. Thank you.
Excellent. With that, I don't see any other business before us. Thank you, everybody, and let's get on to walking through this new process that we created and coming to a successful conclusion. So, without any further business, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah.